Good morning, everybody. Okay, earlier this month, I was reading I don't know if any of you are doing the Paul Tripp devotional, the gospel through the year. Anyways, I read, we should always hold our plans with an open hand because God is perfectly wise and sovereign, and we are not. This resonated with me because this is a lesson that Jesus has had to teach me many times in my life. And one of the ways he taught me this lesson was through relocating me. Jesus gave me a beautiful childhood. I grew up in a Christian home. I came to Christ as a child. My parents took us to church every week. We shared family devotions together and provided opportunities to learn how to hear God speak. We lived in northern Wisconsin, lived right next door to my great-grandparents. We were surrounded by family. I had both sets of grandparents living close by. One year, though, my dad attended a pastor's conference in Northwest Indiana and returned home to drop the bomb onto our family that we would soon be moving from our brand new home to Indiana, a city in Indiana, so that my dad could attend Bible college. As a sixth grader, moving was initially exciting, and then reality kicked in. I had to leave my dog. I left my grandparents. I left all of my cousins that I had grown up with. I had to attend a brand new school where I knew absolutely nobody. That first week after moving was really rough. I'm pretty sure I cried daily. I remember hearing that my dog kept running home to where we had lived, and I hated the dirty city. Although I couldn't see it at the time, Jesus was already doing a work. Less than 2 years after moving to Northwest Indiana, I started dating my future husband. Fast forward to 20 plus years, Brian and I were married with 3 kids in the middle of their school years. We had plans to serve Jesus in our home church for the rest of our lives. But one day, our little world was rocked in ways that we could not have imagined. I was immediately ready to quit. I asked Brian multiple times if we could just leave. Yes, it was just me wanting to leave, but Brian kept reminding me many times that we don't just walk away from something, we follow God. We follow Jesus where he calls us. Over the next 2 years, we had conversations with our kids about what it looks like to listen and follow Jesus and how it might potentially result in us moving again. During this unsettling time, I remember reading a book called Jesus Is by Judah Smith that was particularly life-changing for me. This book pushed my thinking in terms of some limits I had unknowingly placed on the person of Jesus and who he is. Even while everything in my life felt unsettled at the time, Jesus was beginning to reveal himself to me, or I was just beginning to see it, and growing my relationship with him by opening my mind to things I had never considered. It also caused me to start to wonder and question a lot of things I had been taught my whole life. Brian and I visited a church in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. A couple took us to their home, and the drive to their home took us deeper and deeper into the forest-covered mountains. As we drove down this one-lane gravel road, a cat with a chopped-off tail ran across the road in front of us, and I looked at Brian and said, "What in the world are we doing, or what are we getting ourselves into?" We met so many good people that weekend, but this was really out of our comfort zone. Back to the country, we were comfortable with the city. We were in a comfort zone that we created in suburbia. We saw lots of stars that weekend, but it was extremely dark. We considered whether it was actually worth it to leave everything we knew and our family again, including parents who came to watch all of our kids' sporting events and were so involved in our kids' lives. But Jesus was working. After spending the weekend visiting Luray, we finally attended church. By the end of the second song in the service, I had tears in my eyes. I looked at Brian. I don't remember if we just kind of said, "This is it," or if we nodded at each other, but we knew that this is where God was calling us. But this also came with the revelation that we were, again, having to leave something behind. Jesus led us all the way. We lived in temporary housing when we moved to Luray for a few months. Our kids had to switch schools mid-year. They left all of the friends and the only friends that they knew, the only life they knew, and it wasn't easy for them. Especially it was difficult for Troy, and I think you've heard part of this before. He was only a year and a half from graduation. He was about to get his driver's license. He was leaving right before a basketball tournament, like all of these things. But Jesus worked that out too, because he ended up meeting and marrying a local girl, and I think he was okay with the results of that. During our first month in Virginia, I attended a Bible study. I was invited to attend a Bible study with some new people. We were only there for a couple weeks. They were all strangers, and we used the book Discipline of Grace. For the first time, I read about the gospel. I was so confused when it came to a chapter talking about preaching the gospel to yourselves every day. It was foreign language to me. In this study, I read about abundant grace that we're offered. Grace was not a totally foreign topic to me, but it was expressed in a way that I had never heard before. And I began to grow hungry for more and more about Jesus. There was just so much I had never understood before, even as I read. Jesus used so many people in Luray to pour into me, during our time there. A few were instrumental for sure. Gordy and Lynn, Carolyn. Pastor Micah was our youth pastor, but I worked in the church office, and he came in and he would just sit down and have the most random conversations, but they all led back to Jesus. It was amazing. I made some lifelong friends quickly, which was something that I had prayed for. Before we left Indiana, I was just like, God, please just give me a good group of friends to make it easier. And he did. He answered in a big way. We had our ups and downs, but I went on a walk one day thinking, oh, great. I finally feel good. Like, I feel content. This is awesome. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, I was like, uh-oh. As soon as you feel really comfortable with something, you know God's going to start stirring that pot, right? Soon after, some things happened to lead our hearts to consider that our time of ministry there was coming to an end. But this time, I was more inclined to wait for Jesus to reveal what was next, because I had grown confident that he would show us. I don't mean to imply that I was happy to think about moving again, but this time I just knew where to put my trust. Or maybe I should say, I know in whom I was putting my trust. After we visited PCC in June of 2023, I told Brian I would talk to Jesus about what he wanted. My favorite way to talk to Jesus and to listen is taking long walks outside. I just love it. The first time I left to have a conversation with Jesus about this particular church, he responded. I was about 30 feet from the end of my driveway when I started my conversation, and I was immediately stopped. When he impressed upon my heart, I got this. So, of course, I responded with, but what if, but yeah, I'm leaving my kids, or I'm doing, and I immediately felt again, I told you I'll take care of this. So I walked back up the driveway and told Brian, okay, let's go. Honestly, in some ways, this was an easier move, but in other ways, it was much more difficult. Our kids were grown. I was now leaving people who became my family when mine was far away. I was leaving people who had invested in my spiritual growth. I was leaving people that I chose to love dearly, but I was also following Jesus with more confidence than I had in previous moves. I continue to be in awe at the hunger that I have for knowing more about him. I'm amazed that he considers that what I have to offer him is something of value, and that he would consider orchestrating the hard things in my life for his glory and my good. In every move, Jesus had something waiting for me that I needed, that I really wasn't looking for or expecting, a closer relationship with him. Following Jesus has not always been easy, but it has always been worth it. Because every time he revealed more of his love, more of his grace, and more of his presence to me. I have come to realize that with each move, we never left anyone behind, we just followed our King.